Welcome back to Scouting 5, recapping scouting news from around the world for the week of May the 13th, 2024. And I guess for the rest of 2024 to date, because I don't think I've actually done a Scouting 5 episode yet this year. And I apologize for that. As you can imagine, life only gets busier as your kids get older, more things are going on, and on top of that, more responsibilities at work. And those are a good thing. Moving up at work, moving up in the world, having more to take charge of, having more to do with my kids, none of these are bad things. But they do make it hard sometimes to record these little interstitial episodes between the big episodes. And so here we are in the middle of May, and I'm finally getting around to recapping scouting news from around the world for almost the first half of the year. To start things off, I guess we should talk about some big changes happening south of the border. Since this is being recorded in Canada, I am, of course, speaking of the United States, and that is the rebranding of the Boy Scouts of America. Quoting CNN, Boy Scouts of America announced Tuesday, and keep in mind that this was last Tuesday, so May 7th, that it will change its name to Scouting America next February to emphasize its commitment to inclusion. The youth organization said that the new name change is meant to help everyone, including boys and girls, feel welcome. The change will go into effect on February 8th, 2025, the organization's 115th birthday. According to spokespeople for Boy Scouts of America, soon to be Scouting America, the rebranding won't change the organization's mission of preparing young people over their lives to make ethical and moral choices by instilling the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. America's values are Scouting values. End quote. There was some interesting chatter about this on the Scouts Canada Facebook group, both the official discussion group and the unofficial discussion group, and I've also seen it in other groups that I'm part of online. My general take on this is that some people are really rushing to find fault with Scouts BSA for sticking on to the Boy Scouting, holding on to the Boy Scouting branding for as long as they did. I don't find fault with it, as I know I've said on other episodes of scouting stuff. Scouts BSA, Boy Scouts of America, Scouting America, whatever you want to call them, did in the span of 5 or 6 years what Scouts Canada took a very slow and deliberate 2 decades to do, transitioning from being a male-only organization to a fully co-ed organization. And I've even seen indications now that Scouting America will allow co-ed troops to be charted. Currently, their troops are charted like they're male-only or female-only. Even if the troops wind up meeting in the same place at the same time on the same night. They are technically separately charted, but I guess even that is going to be changing, which is awesome. I mean, well done. Good job. I don't personally find fault for them, having a few bumps trying to do something quickly that our own organization here in Canada took quite a long time to do in a very slow and deliberate kind of method. Next, a couple of stories about Scouts undertaking efforts to clean up plastic waste and marine waste. Over in... where was this now? So in Portugal, and this is quoting scout.org, Scouts there undertook a project to clean up marine waste back in January. Quoting, this year's campaign was an incredible success from November 5th to 27th. So I apologize, it wasn't actually back in January, that's just when the news broke. The actual campaign took place in late 2023. From November 5th to the 27th, and across the nation, 70 initiatives unfolded, engaging and inspiring 3,164 Scouts. Their collective effort resulted in the cleansing of an impressive 72.9 kilometers of coastal areas, ridding them of 11.9 tons of marine litter. This 5th edition of the campaign witnessed a monumental effort, the largest national action of the Month of the Sea. On November 18th, at Aguadera Beach, this initiative was led by the National Environment Department, in collaboration with the Regional Scout Group of Porto and the municipality of Matosinhos. A significant turnout of 750 participants joined forces to remove 161 kilograms of marine litter and eradicate 1.5 tons of invasive species, which had been detrimental to the environment, hampering native vegetation growth, altering soil acidity, and occupying vast expanses of land. End quote. Meanwhile, over in Rwanda, some interesting innovations for plastic waste. Quoting, again, scout.org. The Elephant Actif Scout Group in Gaspro District are using plastic bottles to grow green leafy vegetables, carrots, and fruits on a piece of land donated by one of the group's parents. They also meet with the parents regularly to talk to them about plastic pollution and the need to remove plastic waste from the environment. In the districts of Gasabo, Kikuro, Musanze, and Ruisi in Rwanda, Scouts are learning about the harmful effect of plastics on the environment and taking action to reduce pollution in their communities. From community awareness campaigns to plastic waste collection drives and making diverse handicrafts from plastic waste, the Scouts are building their environmental leadership capacities through the Plastic Tide Turners Challenge. End quote. And we've heard about the Tide Turners Challenge before. Great initiative. And it's another one of those really great examples of like how Scouts in other parts of the world are doing just some utterly amazing things, which I sometimes bemoan that we don't do more of here in Canada. And I don't always talk about awards that much on the podcast, but it's worth noting stuff like the Bronze Wolf being awarded, which in this case happened in March to His Royal Highness Prince Guillaume of Luxembourg. He was awarded the Bronze Wolf for exceptional service to Scouting, quoting yet again Scout.org. Since 2017, the Prince, a Baden-Powell Fellow, has served as a board member of the World Scout Foundation. He was appointed as the Foundation's chairperson between September 21 and October 2023, where he steered the institution through a significant period of change, including the development and adoption of a new strategy to boost funding for world scouting. He has spearheaded efforts to increase institutional and individual fundraising, and has leveraged committee coordination work, initiatives, and events to champion the missions of both the Federation and the World Organization of the Scout Movement for greater youth-led change, peace, and sustainable development. Encouraged by his grandfather and his father to discover and protect nature, the Prince has been a Scout since he was a child, joining the movement as a Cub Scout at age 8. Early on, he participated in a humanitarian camp in Nepal, where he worked on projects supporting reforestation and assisting disadvantaged communities, leaving him with unforgettable memories. The Prince has also been an active proponent of Scouting on the national stage, having served as Chief of Scouting in Luxembourg since October of 2019, a role that provides a vital link between the two national associations that make up Scouting in the country. End quote. Now, this is something that we don't focus on enough in Scouts Canada, which is the spirituality part of the program. I mean, we have a guiding framework called the SPICES, and the last S in that acronym stands for spirituality. But there are some people who would prefer that we downplay or entirely eliminate any religious aspect from the program, any spiritual aspect from the program, which is in stark contrast to how Scouting organizations in other countries often handle it. For example, from Venezuela, and again quoting Scout.org, Scouts of Venezuela has officially launched the Interreligious Dialogue Challenge as part of its educational program. This challenge offers young people a valuable opportunity to explore, understand, and establish friendships in a spiritual environment. Framed within the Scouts for SDGs and contributing to SDG 16, the educational project of Scouts of Venezuela drives toward the promotion of respect, diversity, and the spiritual and religious development of young people. Interreligious exchange is encouraged and a culture of peace is promoted, where dialogue plays a fundamental role. End quote. The article goes on to describe some of the different stages of the program, an exploration stage, a reflective action stage, and the way in which the working team in Scouts of Venezuela developed the educational guide for this. Maybe one more quote here. The project has been designed with the active participation of WASM consultants and a team of volunteers representing different religious groups with experience in education, ensuring its relevance and appropriateness to the needs of young Scouts. The pilot demonstrated the great interest of members in participating in this proposal, highlighting the importance of the subject for the organization. This initiative generated a great expectation among young people who are eager to participate in the activities that make up the Interreligious Dialogue Challenge. End quote. It's also worth noting that this is part of the Messengers of Peace initiative that WASM promotes. So, I guess my challenge maybe to Scouts Canada, anybody from Scouts Canada listening to this, is instead of trying to downplay or entirely eliminate spirituality of any sort from the program, maybe it's time that we look at an overhaul not only of the Religion in Life and Spirituality Award badges that our Scouts can still earn, but also look at doing what we can to develop a program to better align ourselves with SDG 16 and WASM's Messengers of Peace initiative. And it's worth noting that this program isn't just taking place in Venezuela. There is a similar project named Enviouthment. It's a bit cumbersome. Maybe it renders better in Spanish. But it's being developed in the Philippines. And evidently it was successfully funded through the Scout donation platform, which I think I'm going to be talking about in another segment just ahead here. But first, a little bit of a check-in on one of the newest additions to the World Organization of the Scouting Movement, which is Scoutisme Congolais, the Scouting Association in the Republic of Congo, which joined WASM in, I believe, mid-2023. Once again, quoting Scout.org. A delegation from Scouting in Africa visited the Republic of Congo to deliver post-admission capacity building and support to Scoutisme Congolais, who officially joined the World Organization of the Scout Movement in August of 2023. The mission focused on assessing the status of Scouting in the country and exploring how to better support the growth and development of the movement while ensuring compliance with WASM standards for member National Scout organizations. Since being recognized as a member of WUSM, the national leadership of the movement has made efforts to consolidate the gains made and unite the movement in the country. There's still great need for enhancing capacity of the leadership at different levels to build strong teams, structures, and procedures that will ensure the sustainability of the movement in the country. Beyond capacity strengthening, training yielded a set of resolutions that will form a self-directed action plan to be implemented by Scoutisme Congolais in advancing lessons learned from workshops held during this visit. End quote. So it sounds rather like the Congolese Scouts are being incorporated into WUSM rather well, and definitely getting some support in making the shift to being one more NSO in the WUSM family. I mentioned we'd talk a little bit more about the Scouting donation platform, so here that is. Quoting once more, scout.org. This past year, the Scout donation platform has showcased the remarkable dedication of Scouts worldwide, supported by generous contributions. The unwavering support has enabled Scouts to undertake vital initiatives such as providing health and well-being support, promoting environmental sustainability, fostering peace and community engagement, imparting life skills, and offering emergency relief efforts. Collectively, every donation has made a significant impact, resulting in a total contribution exceeding $143,000, benefiting over 20,000 individuals across 18 countries from all 5 WUSM regions. This milestone underscores the tangible difference that collective support can make in empowering Scouts to drive positive change in communities around the globe. To celebrate this achievement, the platform is hosting the Donations Matched Uganda Scouts for Clean Water initiative, spearheaded by the Uganda Scout Association. This project aims to provide clean and safe water to thousands of households, breaking the cycle of poverty and promoting health and education in communities across Uganda. It adopts a holistic approach focusing on sustainable water infrastructure projects such as protected spring wells and borehole drilling. With a matched giving campaign in place, thanks to a generous World Scout Foundation BP fellow, every donation made to the project up to $7,500 is being matched dollar for dollar, effectively doubling its impact. That donation drive is still ongoing today. I'll make sure there's a link included in the show notes. They've currently raised $6,406, I assume US dollars, out of a $15,000 goal. The article also goes on to cite other projects that have been funded through the donation platform. Just a few of these: Bolivia Scouts in renewable energy education, earthquake response in Morocco, the interfaith collaboration in the Philippines, previously mentioned, and there's a link within the article to other initiatives that have been successfully funded through it. So please do consider giving that a look, and please do consider donating because, hey, clean water for communities in Uganda sounds like a pretty worthwhile thing, if I do say so myself. Camp Tamaracuda, which is, I believe, located in Quebec here in Canada. I've never been myself, and I suppose I never will be now because I believe Scouts Canada has committed to... the property was closed, oh gosh, I have to think. I think it was closed in 2022 or 2023, or it wasn't closed per se, but it was kind of shut down. Operations there shut down. And then it kind of went into this limbo as Scouts Canada decided what to do with the property. And evidently they've decided to sell it. Unfortunately, it was recently stricken by another bit of a disaster because, of course, like all of the buildings and stuff were still on the property. And I mean, if you've ever been to a Scout camp with long established buildings, there's always memorabilia inside them. And unfortunately, the camp lodge at Tamaracuda burned to the ground about a week ago, quoting the CBC. Over the weekend, the main lodge was destroyed by fire. It was the second fire on the campground in a month. The camp, Tamaracuda Scout Reserve, was built in 1911 in Mille-Îles, Quebec, about 80 kilometers south of Montreal. Did I say south of Montreal? I meant to say northwest of Montreal, in the Laurentians. 6 years ago, the camp closed, and Scouts Canada has been trying to sell it since 2023. The cause of the fire is unknown, the organization says, and Scouts Canada is supporting the police in their investigation. End quote. And unfortunately, within the lodge were, again, there's tons of memorabilia, badges, neckerchiefs, crests from groups that had visited the place, lots of awards, and all kinds of stuff. Unfortunately, all gone up literally in smoke. Notice how I'm not inserting a rant here about Scouts Canada's property management, because I'm not going to. You can't make me. Please don't ask. And finally, one last story to close it out with. I said I wasn't going to quote scout.org again. Or rather, I said quoting scout.org one more time. But actually, I have one more story from scout.org. And this is kind of one of those examples of how, and I mean, I know in Canada we don't always have the same level of, like, we don't have water scarcity here to the same degree that you have it in Africa. We don't have natural disasters here on quite the same scale as you see in a lot of places. Not usually, right? Like wildfires, yes. And occasionally a tornado, but not to the same scale that you hear about in many other regions around the world. And it just so happens that in a lot of those regions around the world, Scouts often rise to the occasion to help their communities respond to these disasters, and we've covered many such stories on other Scouting 5 episodes. And here's one more example, this time from Brazil. In the wake of the devastating floods in Rio Grande do Sul, Scouts in Brazil, together with Escoteiros do Brasil, the national scout organization in the country, have mobilized to support recovery and reconstruction efforts. Persistent rainfall over the past 2 weeks, with more downpours forecast in the coming days, has put the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul in a state of emergency. More than 300 cities have already been affected by intense floods, including the local capital of Porto Alegre, displacing over 150,000 people. Some towns have become isolated, and at least 130 people are missing. Responding to the extreme weather event, Escoteiros do Brasil sprung into action, working together with government officials to support a comprehensive response plan that addresses immediate needs and kickstarts the recovery process. Supporting this, Escoteiros do Brasil has launched a fundraising campaign through the Scout donation platform to direct donations toward the recovery and relief efforts. Fundraising, raised by Escoteiros do Brasil, will provide urgent relief to those affected, help restore stability to communities, and pave the way for longer-term recovery. Funds raised through the project will be directed towards delivering humanitarian assistance, including personal hygiene kits, medical and first aid supplies, and sanitation products to prevent disease outbreaks. End quote. And this is what I mean. We don't necessarily have to face this same kind of stuff in Canada. Not nearly as much. Floods do happen sometimes, fires. But the scale of the impact is often quite a bit smaller. But even when these things do happen, like we're dealing with wildfires now here in Alberta, and there's talk of evacuating some towns, and some people have already left those towns and come to, say, Edmonton, looking for assistance. There's not really the same kind of mobilization, not from council level, not of individual groups, and not at the national level to respond to it. And I really think sometimes that we lose something in not having those sorts of responses. Closing thought, maybe, if anybody from National is listening, is that, there is a project right now, and I think CEO Liam Burns is right to want to increase the visibility of scouting, because we need that. I mean, people aren't going to come and find us if they don't know that we're here. But this is one of the best ways that we can ever show that we're here and that we show up, is by showing up when disasters like this strike. And not just, an individual group organizing a sock drive for Ukrainian refugees. I mean, that's good too. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to pour any kind of disdain on those efforts. I've seen many of my own scouts do similar things, and it's great to have those individual efforts. But to actually have council level and national level organized responses when these disasters strike, whatever they may be, whether it is wildfires, whether it is flooding, whether it is, a hurricane that accidentally makes its way up the coast of New Brunswick, scouts should be partnering to join in the relief efforts. And we don't see that as much in Canada as we do in many other countries around the world. And I think that if we want to increase our visibility as an organization, that might be a good place to start. Because people will see that and they'll think, wow, that's worth being part of. Anyway, that is all the news I have for you today. Sorry it's a long episode, but hey, I had half a year to catch up on. Thank you for listening. I'll try and do these more frequently. And until next time, be prepared.